A rectangular block is being moved along a rough table by a horizontal force P. Draw diagrams showing the forces acting on the rectangular block and the table due to the block being present. So here we have the block and here we have the table. The table's rough, so there'll be some sort of friction involved here. The direction of the motion in this case is going to be that way. So if we look at the forces just on the block, you have the weight of the block acting downwards, and then you have a reaction between the block and the table, which is perpendicular to it. This is called the normal reaction. Right, there is a force acting in that direction on the block, and then because the table is rough, the friction will oppose the motion. So if it's moving that way, the friction will act in the opposite direction. Now, if you look at the forces on the table, so we have a table, so with the block being present, we haven't got the block drawn on the diagram, there will be a friction, and although the block's moving that way, the table feels like it's moving in the opposite direction, so the friction acts on the table is acting in that direction. Now there will be a normal reaction between the block and the table, and that will act downwards. Now there's some notes to think about here. So here's our diagrams again. The frictional and the normal reaction forces acting on the table are equal to the opposite to those of the table and the block. So basically these two here will be equal but acting in opposite direction, and these two here will be equal but in opposite directions. Now as the block is moving horizontally, the normal reaction and between it and the table is equal to its weight. So if it's moving that way, then this force here will be equal to this one here. This is not always true. It's not always true that the vertical reaction between any two objects is not necessarily equal to the weight of the one on the top. But in this case, because we're moving horizontally, this is true. Okay, this has been a video to show you about forces of a block moving on a rough table. So if we have the term rough, we're talking about there'll be friction involved. If we're talking about smooth, then we are talking that there is no friction involved. I hope you've understood, and I thank you very much for watching.